What up, Hope? It's your boy Stev. I'm here today with cinematographer, filmmaker Derrick Glenn.
Hey.
And today we are talking Danny Boyle's Sunshine, written by Alex Garland. Here's the thing. So it's definitely one of your favorite movies, right?
Yes, my claim is that it's my favorite movie. Like, they'd be like, what's your favorite movie? It's this movie. And for good reason. I still think it is my favorite movie. Like, I've seen a lot of movies that are maybe I think would be perceived as better, but there's something that just... This movie's like the perfect package for me, and I recently revisited it, like in preparation for this like talk we were gonna have, and it still holds up in a lot of ways. And it was one of those ones I was gonna put it on the background or whatever, and then it's like, well, lock me in, and then I was just watching it, and I'm like, oh wow, like I know what's gonna happen, but I'm like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like you're like, oh, I want to watch it like unfold, and like it's I don't know, a bit of a human train wreck too. I don't know why. Maybe that's why part of it too. People like to look at train wrecks, but it's also like a weird like, okay, it's as much as it's like going to the edge of space or whatever. Are we gonna get right into it, or should I give it?
Keep going. Okay. Oh no,
so,
we'll talk about
Okay, I'm not no spoilers right now, but what I'll just say is it's about a group of scientists, astronauts going to the sun with a giant bomb to restart the sun because it's actually losing its heat, it's dying and growing colder, making life more inhospitable on Earth. But we open to this ship floating in outer space. It's like a giant dinner plate with like a little toothpick like ship like at the end of it, and we see what I think is really good about this is that it's a very unusual craft with a very I would say impressive ensemble cast of people in it. So it's like pretty much a group of them going to the sun to just restart it with a bomb, like I said, and it's like highly unusual.
Here's the thing, movie works.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of this movie too. So I know it's your favorite movie. I'm happy you described it like that. This was on my list of movies. So we both made a list of movies that we wanted to talk about. It just so happened this was also on my list. So when you're like, hey, do you want to talk about Sunshine? I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I want to talk about Sunshine. So I'm happy we're talking. I'm happy.
Yeah. I want to say Danny Boyle's probably one of my favorite actors working. I think
directors?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, did I say actor? Oh my goodness. I meant directors. He's one of my favorite storytellers right now. I think his range of movies and what he's capable of makes him a little bit of a chameleon. Like, I don't know if he necessarily has like a specific style, but he can do a lot of different things. And this is his take on a sci-fi horror thriller, if you will, which I think is
I think his filmography is super interesting. Every movie that he makes is different from the last, if you ask me. Like he starts out with Shallow Grave, very cool, like noir, let's say like crime flick, like really small, tight crime flick. And then he does Train Spotting, which is in my like top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Right, it becomes this big cult.
I love Train Spotting. It's a fucking amazing movie. And then he goes on to do like A Life Less Ordinary. He does like, and then he just everything he does is different.
28 Days, right?
28 Days Later, eventually. So that's right before Sunshine. He does 28 Days Later, which was also written by Alex Garland.
Yeah, right.
So, and then he also does The Beach right before that.
Oh, sure, right, yes, yeah.
Which is also written by, Alex Garland wrote the novel.
Okay.
Did he write the screenplay as well?
I know it was getting adapted, but I forget if he wrote the screenplay or not. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, maybe? Me too. I don't actually remember that. But he definitely wrote the book, and then Danny Boyle makes the movie, and then he makes 28 Days Later, which is one of my favorite zombie movies. And then he does Sunshine, which is one of my favorite space movies.
Right.
So it's like he's definitely knocking it out of the park every time. I agree with you. And then he goes on to do Slumdog Millionaire, which wins Best Picture.
Yeah.
Recently he did like Yesterday, which is a fantastic musical.
I love Yesterday, dude. And that's, I don't know, that movie didn't get the love I think it needed. But
Agreed.
You know what? Screw them. Like, I think, like, the people that didn't get that movie, it just makes it more special for me. Because it's, I don't know, whatever we get in that movie. But he's making interesting films. And, like, they don't always work sometimes, but they'd also work for me. And, like, Sunshine is just one of those movies. It's doing everything properly. And it works so well, and it sets up the stakes really early, I think, right? So it's like, I don't know. Like, are we talking, like, can we talk actors for a little bit right now?
Let's do it.
So I would say, like, pretty recently, Oscar winner Cillian Murphy's in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And he's probably giving one of my favorite performances, just as a guy who's got the weight of the entire planet on his shoulders, because his character is the guy who invented the bomb, and he's going to, like, set it off. So this dude is, like, not even sure if it's gonna work 100%, right? Like we're less than 45% sure this whole plan of like mining Earth's like minerals for this bomb to like set it off. Like we're not even sure if it's gonna 100% work, right?
He's a really interesting character. You're right, because his arc is very much like everything's hypothetical.
Yeah.
To him, whereas every other character in the movie, everything they do is very like exact, and it's almost like everything they do is so he can get to the sun.
Definitely.
Like Michelle Yeoh's character, like everything she grows is essential. Like to the oxygen and to everything. Like Mace, the engineer, who might be Chris Evans.
Yeah.
So probably like, oh, he's so good in this movie. Actually,
bro. And like this is where it's like, okay, when I heard he's gonna do Captain America, I'm like, you know what? Like he does have a commanding presence. Like everybody knows him as the goofball, like from Human Torch or whatever, and like he's earlier great, even. Right? But like he's a good actor, and like he's putting it on here. And one thing I will say, we're gonna name a couple of people. Like the cast is very global.
Very
like
diverse,
like if the sun is dying, that means like nations probably would have got together. So we have a lot of representation from different countries on it. And Chris Evans represents like the American, like I think, which is really cool too, right? So
I agree. Although Cillian Murphy has an American accent, doesn't he? Or does he not? No, he doesn't.
I feel
like he does.
Yeah, I think it's like, honestly, it's like a Cillian Murphy accent. Like I feel like if he's English, that helps with the international.
That makes sense
like,
to me.
Thing. Yeah,
Same with Rose Byrne is playing an American in this movie too. Which I'm like, I don't know why you wouldn't just have her be British.
Whatever.
Like, what are you doing? Like,
you know. Okay, so maybe it's like you could just tip the scales more American. I actually didn't know she was English until movies later. Like this is my introduction to her. Actually, she's an actress.
Me too.
And like I was like, wow, who's this girl? Like very pretty and like giving it too, like in a lot of her performance. She plays a very sad character, and I think this one, but she gives really real performances like all the time, like throughout it. And a lot of these actors are like, after this, like a lot of them break out later, or they're already popular, right? Yeah, right. Like, so it's like they're already, and like their interconnectedness and how they need each other to work. Even like you were talking, Michelle Yeoh is keeping track.
Recent Oscar winner as well. Just won an Oscar.
Right,
actually.
Like, right. All these people are on point, and they're working really well together as people trapped in a tin can, flying closer and closer to the sun, which we'll get to Searle, like Cliff Curtis's character.
So another so good,
bro. Okay, what I want to say about this movie is that all the actors are given the right amount of time to show off like where their trajectory is gonna, like where they're starting from and where they're gonna head, and everybody gets a moment to like we get a little character study of everybody before things start to get crazier as they go towards the sun, which you can tell it's really well directed in that way, because it's like he's doing the proper amount of ground lane work like ahead of time, because as well oiled as this machine, as this plan is, things eventually start to go sideways, and you get to see a lot of these characters like deal with that and cope with how their function or what their part of the mission is, like a part of it, like what they have to offer the mission is like changed as the mission like kind of unravels or whatever. But sure. I want to say Kanata, like bro, like
I was trying to figure out who the actor was.
Oh, what's his name? Sorry.
I don't actually. Okay. Unfortunately, it's very. So I can try.
Are we gonna fumble through it? Okay.
It's Sanada is his last name, but it's like Hiroyuki.
I'll let you.
Sanada?
I'll let you baff it.
Thank you. I fucking butchered it. Okay. But here's the thing, though. He's another actor who wasn't super big back then, but now he's fucking in everything. He's the main character in Shogun, which is on FX right now.
Okay.
He was a big character in like the Wolverine. Like,
I loved him in the Wolverine.
He's so good.
He's again a good actor, and I'm just so glad that they've got so many people in this like tight space working really well together, because you can tell like this, like the fact that these people move on to go do great things, it's like it's all working here. I don't know.
No, I agree. Yeah. And then the even another huge actor that was before, I'd never seen him before this movie. I want to say this was the first movie I saw him as Benedict Wong.
Yeah, which now he's Wong.
He's in Marvel, man. Yeah, he's like one of the fucking main characters in the Marvel universe.
It's true.
Right now.
That's true.
He's a Sorcerer Supreme, bro.
Right. So everybody, I feel like this is the graduating class of like future like fun adventures for everybody, like everybody except for I would say Harvey.
He's the only one I have no clue. I couldn't even tell you what his name is.
Yeah. It's Troy. Troy
Oh, no.
something?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
Troy Garrity.
Garrity is Harvey, which I think too.
Yeah, he's the only one I never saw before that. Never saw that.
Yeah, that's great. But whatever. Like, I still think
he's good at it. He's good at it.
His character is also like, it adds layers to like the ship's dynamic, and as pretty much like
we'll talk about it more in spoilers because everything with
yeah.
him kind of involves spoilers.
Yeah. But it's true. It's just his character, I still feel for him. Like, even though, let's say he's the one that, like, he's like, what happened to his career? He's still doing a really good job with, like, what his character is.
Oh, no, he's the perfect actor for that character.
Yeah.
Everybody's perfectly cast in this movie.
Right.
Actually.
And it's like, it's one of those things where it's not like even they're heavy hitters yet. They're not stars, and like, that's like risky because it's like, I don't know. But like, smart casting choices because it's a good director. I'm just saying that's all right.
Good writer, good director, good movie.
Yeah. Not critically well received though, unfortunately. Like, I get it.
Yeah. So this movie for the longest time. So I have two movies that are like this. The Village is one of them, but this is, which I think I've definitely told on the podcast before, but this is another one where I told my friends to watch this movie when I saw it. I want to say I was definitely in high school when it came out, and I was like, guys, this movie is something else. You got to check it out. And for years, I'd recommend a movie, and they're like, "Oh, you're the guy who recommended Sunshine to me, so don't recommend movies." Like, but they're the same friends who, like, a year ago, they were like, "Hey, so I watched that Sunshine movie. It's actually really good." It's
right?
like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah,
for
right.
years, you told me it was garbage.
Yeah, right. Right.
But like, I will get more into. I can't even talk about it without spoiling.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot to get to in spoilers, but I agree with you that it's something about this movie that I don't think people are ready for, and like, I think good sci-fi like does deal with a lot of the unknown, and like really. Okay, this movie is watching these people go closer and closer to the sun. The ship is called the Icarus II, by the way. Yeah. There's another ship out there. Which is like we'll get into that.
Yeah, so they're the second. So the first one never made it.
Yeah,
but nobody knows what happened.
Right.
So this is the second one, and this is not just the second one, but this is the last one.
Yeah,
they scraped the bottom of the barrel. They're like, this is all the resources we have to make this bomb.
Right.
So we have to succeed.
Right.
And it just adds this little level of like,
and that's it. The movie ratchets the tension, and like there's like the stakes are set. And then things just increase as far as like, oh my goodness, like every little bit adds to it or whatever, and you're getting so. But the Icarus also like flying too close to the sun. Yeah. I think it's a strange thing to want to name the ship that needs to succeed and do the mission well. Name it after a guy who falls to his death and like completely like
because
it's like
he flew
right.
To the sun,
it's like but like even too, we're not talking about the one character Mark Strong who plays a character. I don't know how.
We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later.
I want to get into just the psychological effects of being too close to the sun versus like how maybe like the Goldilocks Earth like sun radiation is like kind of where we need to be, and this movie also explores the fun of that too. Like, I don't know. So
agreed. One thing I also want to talk about just real quick. It's also very rare for a movie to go this way. Like a sci-fi movie to go from Earth to the sun. 9 times out of 10, when you see a sci-fi movie and they're going anywhere, they're going away from the sun. They're going to like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn.
Leaving the solar system, bro.
Yeah.
Get out of here. That's it.
Whereas this is one of the only ones where they're going towards the sun, and I find that super interesting. Even like there's this isn't a spoiler because it's pretty early. They pass Mercury at one point.
Oh my goodness.
And it's such a beautiful scene where they're just looking at Mercury as they like, it's I don't know, it's just interesting. It's an interesting movie.
And actually to that effect, everybody's watching that, but you have all your characters in that room, which is actually their reactions to watching Mercury are all different. And Danny Boyle's careful to let you watch everybody reacting to what is essentially like a planet you'd never see that closely before. So it's like,
and you never will again.
Never ever again, right? So it's like, it's kind of like this really magical moment in the movie that always sticks with me, and it's a big reason why this movie is my favorite, because so often, like you said, we're busy looking for black holes or like whatever, all the power to all those people, but like Mercury's like kind of our neighbor, bro. And like I've never seen Mercury depicted like it's been depicted in this movie. Probably never will again.
It's
like,
amazing.
bro, that's it.
I will say a lot of the problems that people have with the storyline is I guess there's a level of far-fetchedness with the idea that you're gonna bomb the sun and it's gonna. Here's the thing:
or it's like scientifically inaccurate. I guess.
Whatever.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
could if you could just get past that, the movie's spectacular. Actually, so thank you for picking it because I was gonna pick it. So.
And then too, I want to say that also affects like I feel like Danny Boyle's like that with some films where it's like he has some sort of like weird stipulation that it's like okay, you have to get over this hurdle, and if you do, everything's you're gonna love it, right? Yeah. And like Yesterday is a good example of that. It's like I don't think a lot of people got over that hurdle, and maybe it's the same, but you're right. You're absolutely right. Sunshine and I'm going to just say this. They did, on the DVD special features, which I watched a lot too, they interviewed very quickly and like jarringly a physicist who says like, even though, yes, we know how like sun death is supposed to happen where like the sun will expand and get bigger and like red sun it or whatever, there are other things in the universe we don't understand yet. And if, let's say, something were to cause the sun to cool or like get like less hot or whatever, those would still be anomalies that we don't have all the answers. So a scientist is like, we don't know everything still that's out there. So it's like that's also like an element of scary. Is I think people look at science as like sometimes like a religion, and like, oh well, we have science on our side. We're gonna like bomb the crap out of this, or we're gonna like science our way out of this thing. Well, maybe some things are like bigger than your understanding sometimes,
like weirdly
still.
supernatural even.
Absolutely. And there's an element to this as well, like we're talking about a ghost ship in outer space still, like a little bit too, right? Like there's that element to it. Event Horizon, if you've ever seen that movie, right? Like there's Event Horizon's crazy, and this is a toned down version, but also very spectacular, very thrillery, very scary still too, I think, as well. So there's an element of scary in this, which I think is also like a left turn for some people. Whatever.
That's okay. We'll get into it.
Okay, so, I just want to get into spoilers already.
So before we get into spoilers, you want to do a little quick rating? I'm assuming 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10, obviously.
You know what?
11.
I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Oh.
Because there are just little things. I couldn't even tell you what the little things are. It's just, but it's like, I'll give it a 9. It's almost perfect. I really like this movie a lot.
That's okay.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, I forget how good this fucking movie is. But I'm going to give it 9. But you're giving it a perfect 10.
I'll balance it out, so it's okay. Yeah. So you give it, I'll get, and here's the thing, like, opinions differ, and like maybe years from now, it maybe won't be my favorite movie, but I'm always impressed when I go back to this, and I think it just helps me. Like, it's a goal to strive towards. I think as far as like making a story goes, it's like, oh, okay, that's a standard. Simple. I feel like to reach or whatever. So that's bad.
You know what this reminds me of? It sounds weird. Like, you ever heard the saying like making a perfect plate of spaghetti and meatballs? You know what I'm saying? It's like one of those things where spaghetti and meatballs is really easy to make.
Yes.
So in order to stand out, it has to be fucking perfect. That's what this movie reminds me of. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot going on necessarily, but it's just perfectly made. You see what I'm saying?
You're okay for a space, like for a sci-fi movie. Yeah. It's like the stakes are like within our universe. There's no extra, like there's no threat. Like I would call this a sci-fi movie 100%.
It's 100%
right?
a sci-fi.
And like I think its concept of the fact that the sun is dying is that, but like it is still contained within humanity. Like it's not like rooted in like.
It's like for a movie that's just a bunch of people on a ship. It's just a man on a mission movie, for lack of a better term.
Right.
It's very simple, but it's just so well done. Every little touch is like, oh, perfect. Even like little things like, just like people cooking dinner and just like shit like that. And it's just like, oh, it's just really well written, well acted, everything. So anyway, we're going to spoilers.
Okay, please. Yes. All right. Okay, first of all, I want to say this movie opens with the Fox Searchlight logo backwards. I don't know if you noticed this, and this is something that they'll say in the commentary too. They back this up, but it opens on Fox searchlight, and then the lights go down, and then the camera moves like past the Fox searchlight, and it points at the sun.
Yeah, I know that, and then the sun gets really bright.
Right,
I do know that.
The sun gets bright, and then it turns into the ship or whatever, and like that was all something that they're like, yeah, nobody's ever done that before or whatever, and I think that's like already you're like, oh, I wasn't like again, if you didn't listen to the commentary, whatever, but like I was like, man, this is like. It's a really good way to transition people from the vanity plate into your movie because it actually holds on this little like bright sunspot, and then as it gets closer, you realize it's this giant dinner plate of like tiny little gold like plates that is reflecting the sun off of it, and then behind that is like this tiny little like toothpick elongated ship, and you get to see all this. And this is something in the movie it does where we get these really nice passes in outer space of the ship. And it does a really good job of establishing the geography outside of the ship, and even inside. There's moments where it's like it's just a shot of a hallway, but it's a hallway you're gonna see recurring, and like you're getting it in its most pristine and like peaceful, because later shit's gonna go off or whatever, and it's like you're getting things kind of in like a calm like state. And then later you'll get these things in like different states, and that's I think very, very smart directing and very helpful for like early establishing of where like we are and what we're headed for or whatever. Sure. Right. So.
I also think it's really so you keep describing the ship as like a toothpick.
Yeah, it's like elongated like steel structure with like other pieces floating off of it, like that are like satellites and shit and stuff like that.
Like comms towers, just like
yes,
that.
Yes.
So I think it's really smartly designed because there's a scene when the shields are like a degree off or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But like there's so much radiation coming off the sun that the shield in the front's what's protecting it. So once the toothpick detaches from it, it has to go for so long. So it has to be this thin thing.
Yeah.
Especially because the comm towers are circling around it. It's like, oh, it all makes sense.
Yes.
Like the design just makes sense.
Yeah.
Why? Like every little thing that they do in this movie makes sense. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know,
and they're
cool.
giving you time to look at it, which I think is something that like a lot of movies are like, here's our ship. And you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. But this one's like, no, look at it. Like, see how we designed it, understand where we're headed.
Super simple. It looks it just looks like a radio tower. There's really nothing crazy about it. But like, it really makes a lot of sense why this looks like this.
I should say too, it opens kind of with the Star Wars crawl, except it's not a text; it's a narration by Cillian Murphy's character Kappa, and he's talking pretty much about what the plan is. He's giving you the mission log and like, hey, we're headed towards the sun right now, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. So you're getting him talking to you. He's also the guy who invented the bomb. Like, we're headed there. Like, here are the stakes, pretty much. He's doing, like, yes, it's like, it's telling and not showing so much, but it's still telling and showing, I think, at the same time. It's doing a good job, I think.
So one thing I do want to talk about a lot, actually, because I think Chris Evans in this movie is the fucking MVP. He is so good.
He's killing it. Yeah.
The dynamic after the captain dies.
Yes.
Because Harvey is technically the second in command.
Sure.
So the comms officer technically becomes the second in command.
Yeah.
However, Mace, who's Chris Evans' character, he must be on the bottom of the totem pole because he's just an engineer. He's just like a glorified mechanic. I think a pilot maybe, because I want to say Rose Byrne's the pilot, right?
She is, but I think he's co-pilot or something. Like they're probably a piloting team, is what I gather,
right?
Or whatever.
He's definitely the engineer, though. He's definitely the one who fixes the ship, right?
Yeah.
So like, I love how Chris Evans is like, Harvey, like, you're the least important person on this mission.
Yeah.
Like, and I love this idea that Chris Evans, his whole mentality is
the mission.
I don't give a fuck if I die.
Right.
As long as this bomb gets to that sun, that's all I need. And I need Kappa to get that bomb into the sun.
Right.
And there's so many instances where there's like people butting heads because like, especially because Harvey's, his whole thing, all he ever talks about is the way home.
Yeah.
Well, we need these comm towers for the way home.
Right.
We need more oxygen for the way home. Stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Chris Evans, all he ever talks about is getting to the sun.
Yeah.
And I love that like juxtaposition between the two. You know what I mean? Like where it's like there's Harvey, who's technically the second in command, but then there's
you have to also assess the mission too at the same time.
100%. I just love that, and I love how like Kappa's always in the middle because you're right. That idea like he's like, this is all theoretical. Who knows if this is even going to work? You know what I mean? And then even like Michelle Yeoh's character, her whole thing is just oxygen because that's her job. Like she's I don't know if she's a botanist or whatever the fuck they really explain it.
She's coming in with like O2 reports and she's keeping the garden. And I think also something too, like maybe I saw later in movies, but like a science fiction vessel where like, okay, for oxygen, we're going plants.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right, and we're getting a lot of that coming through or whatever. So everybody's not getting recirculated air. We're getting like natural, like I don't know how much you need or whatever, but like I'm on board. That's brilliant. Even to like it does early on establish what everyone's role is on the ship, and like what everyone's job is. Because even between Mace and Kappa, there's like a little bit of a disagreement, right? A little bit of fight because sending messages back is getting harder because you're traveling further towards the sun, right? But you have Searle, who I wanted to talk about earlier.
Such a good character. Who's the psych officer on the ship.
And what's interesting, and we'll talk about like the psychology of going closer and closer to the source of life that is... like we're not supposed to be this close to it, but the movie opens to, once we get a little bit of a thing, there's an observation room in the ship, and Searle's there basking in the sunlight as long as the most
interesting scenes in this movie take place in this room,
and the extreme close-ups of like the eye and like the sunglasses, they're so beautiful. It's like oh my goodness. But he's bathing in light and then reporting back to psych officer, reporting back to everybody, saying how he like recommends it to everyone or whatever. But like
he's like, it's like speaking to God,
right, or whatever. Like he's being enveloped in like this light that he'd never experienced before, right?
Yeah.
And what I find so interesting about that, can we talk about Pinbecker?
Of course. We're spoilers.
Spoilers.
Let's do it.
So like Pinbecker is like the remaining person from like the last ship. You find out a little bit later.
He kind of implies that he killed everybody, right?
Right, and I'm thinking what he probably did is like in the observation room, which is I like why it opens in the observation room, is because this room plays later. Like, but if you can lift the shields open, like wide open, people would just get like nuked by the sun being that close, and that's what I think he did. But it's alluded to that Pinbecker was just sitting at the edge of the sun for like all that time, waiting for another ship to come, and just bathing in the sunlight. So it's like this concept is so eerie to me, because it's like what are we meant for as like bodies, as people? What are we meant for? And if we're exposed to that much sunlight and that much radiation, even at like, because this veil, this screen that you can see the sun from, observe it from, can be set to different percentages. It's like, how much has he absorbed and how much has it altered his mind? What kind of creature has he become?
Like his eyes are like red at this point. Like,
and like later, like we'll get in the third act. I want to talk a little bit more about what goes down, but like he becomes pretty much a third act like obstacle that you kind of don't see coming. And like I find him very fascinating, and like their take on how they like chose to like portray him was
agreed. I agree.
Also another jarring thing that probably people didn't like when they saw it, but whatever.
That was a lot of people's problem with the movie when I first saw it. Is a lot of people were like, oh, it turns into a slasher movie at the end, and I think how much you like this movie is going to depend on whether or not you're cool with that left turn. Because if you're cool with it, then because I love it. I think that's what makes the movie interesting. It's like, because it's one thing, and then it turns into like, I love slasher flicks. So I'm into it. And it's very like, I don't know, because it's like, even just little things where like Kappa gets locked in the room, and he's like, all right, I got to science my way out of this room. And like, I just like that. It gets really interesting, right? So, but anyway, go ahead, sir.
That's good. Oh, I don't know. I think that there's enough unknown in this movie that makes everything scary, and then makes every part of the mission, every step of the mission, like that much more important. So pretty much, I want to talk. Every step of the mission, like the things change, and like what like you think is gonna happen, like it unravels is pretty much what I've said, and it's like how the movie starts and how it ends is like there'd be no way you think it gets that crazy. But
actually, I was just thinking about it. Rose Byrne's character, I don't remember what the fuck her name is in the movie, but no, any other day, I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, I feel like now, actually, I was just thinking about it, I think she's the doctor too.
Oh, is she a doctor? Well, you know, many people like you.
There's a scene where they introduce the scalpel.
Yeah.
What scene is that? Because they do it 3 times. I feel like there's a scene where they introduce a scalpel. And then there's a scene where they go to, or Mace grabs the scalpel to go kill Buddy, but then he already killed himself.
Yeah.
Or did he? Who knows?
Yeah.
And then there's the third scene where Pinbacker grabs a scalpel.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember what the first time was. But anyway, I feel like she's a doctor. I feel like there's somebody gets injured early on with the fight. I want to say it's Mace and Kappa. They're fighting.
Yeah, they're fighting, but it's just like
over because he went too long with his message.
with his message. But there's no like he doesn't go for a knife or anything like that.
No. But I feel like after the fight, I feel like she's talking to him.
Oh, she's maybe
and she's like not scalp, but like I feel like it's introduced. Yeah. I feel like she opens a drawer and it's introduced or something. Yeah, but I feel like she's patching him up or something. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong.
They're also like at that point it's established like those two are like
definitely
totally in a relationship.
Kind of a thing.
Which is really cute, I think.
Definitely.
Bro, if I'm flying to like maybe uncertain death or whatever, I'd be like, "Hey, girl, I saved the whole universe right now." Right? So like,
How you doing?
Yeah, I bought their relationship. Yeah, I don't know about the scalpel. I
could be wrong.
I remember them looking for one. Mace is gonna go get the scalpel to kill him, and there's
one missing already.
There's one missing, and then there's one with Benedict Wong's character who he sliced his wrists because the reason he sliced his wrists, or I think he actually did it to himself. Like I think
because there's a theory either he did it to himself, or Pinbacker did it to him.
It's to make it look like it,
one or the other. But I also do think that Pinbacker, if he did it, I don't think he'd give a fuck. I think he would just stab him.
He would just like be...
I don't think he would think that much about it.
No.
It's like, that's why
I'm going to make this look like a suicide. No, I'm murdering everybody on this ship or whatever, right? Because we're not... But yeah, okay. So...
Interesting scene, though.
That's it. Yeah, okay. I want to go... So they find, after Mercury, beautiful scene, which we get to see how quickly Mercury moves around the sun. It's unbelievable. And I think that after that, it's revealed that the Icarus 1 distress signal is like... going off, and they weren't able to hear it before then. Causes them to move towards the Icarus. Sun panels get damaged. Benedict Wong, it's his fault or whatever. Like that's what causes him to be suicidal, they say afterwards. And like that's unfortunate for his character. He's, I feel like, not as important as some of the other characters because they kind of sideline him after that. He's on like sedation and suicide watch or whatever. But it kind of fits with later when we see him, he's committed suicide or what looks like suicide. I go, well, like, who was watching his sedation thing? I don't know. Like,
well, Searle would be, but he died.
Right.
So
it's like
the thing.
Everything's falling apart, right?
By that point, they lost half of their fucking people, right?
Yeah.
Because the captain's dead at that point too, right?
Yeah. Well, Kanata dies on the dinner plate. He's the one who watches like the light envelop himself or whatever.
Yeah.
Right or whatever. So it's like he's actually, when he dies, the first time I remember watching it, I'm like, whoa, the captain's the first one to go. That's like
interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Like the dynamic shifts immediately, right? And it's like this weird, because again, you're laying the groundwork and you're watching these characters interact with each other, and then like every decision or every outcome changes the playing field so drastically, and like you watch these characters like suffer to get to the finish line, and you're like, wow, this is like.
It's good. Yeah. But so going back to Benedict Wong, the reason why the captain dies, the reason why it's his fault. But the thing, it's never. Yeah. So he's one occupation on the ship that it never really explains. Yeah. I actually had to read up on it because I was like curious. I don't even know what he actually does on the ship.
It changes the trajectory.
So apparently, according to Alex Garland, he wrote it into the script, but it didn't make it into the movie. He's like a mathematician. He's like a genius, like supremely genius level mathematician, but he's like a hacker or something. That got caught by the police and was going to go to jail, but they said, or you could go on this ship and like for no jail sentence. So he did that, but he's like this like genius.
Oh, she's like a convict.
Yeah,
or so like a criminal a little bit. Wow, fascinating stuff. And like,
but like they never ever say anything about that.
You know what? I think in this case, because the stakes are set so high, it's not so much their backstory that matters to me. It's like how they're reacting in the moment.
Definitely.
And like that's interesting to know now. Maybe I'll watch it the next time and I'll be like, oh, that convict messing up, making mistakes.
Right, but that's because that's why he's like, because his whole thing was doing the math on the shift. The degrees, whatever. So he's like, I did the math. I triple checked it. It was fine, but he didn't take into account something small. But it's also because, okay, I'm trying to remember the order of the movie. because Kanata dies before they find Icarus, right?
So it goes Mercury, like after Mercury,
Yeah.
they hear Icarus, they change the trajectory.
And then he dies.
Then he dies on the dinner plate.
And then they make it to Icarus.
They make it to Icarus,
Okay.
but because of their trajectory change and the problems that they encountered,
It destroys the comm towers.
the comms towers gets destroyed,
Yeah.
and
that's why they couldn't hear the signal,
right?
Because the comm towers got destroyed.
And they no, they couldn't hear the signal because of the iron content on Mercury was somehow interfering with the signal or whatever. But after that, they're forced to go to Icarus 1. They have to, because at this point they're missing other capabilities or whatever. I forget what there was some. There was a fire on board.
It destroyed the oxygen.
Yeah, the oxygen destroyed all the plants. Yeah.
And then so Mace was like, we have to open the oxygen tanks to snuff out the fire.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, that's gonna lose all, like, we're gonna lose all of our oxygen. And he was like, it's a choice we have to make.
Yeah.
That's the only way to save.
Yeah. Otherwise the whole mission blows up, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, he's making calculated risks the whole time. And you're like, oh,
and
my
he's like
goodness,
smart, he's like weirdly the most rational person.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that he's not even the top, you know what I mean? He's kind of like the bottom guy, but he's like the one that's like, no, I'm getting us to this.
Yeah.
That's my job. I have to get this ship to there.
Yeah.
And like so Icarus. So this first Icarus, go on. If you
Yeah.
wanna...
Right. Okay. So they're forced to join to Icarus 1, detach from the dinner plate, and then bring the toothpick over to Icarus 1 to dock it. But once they dock it and aboard it, this is where it starts to turn into like a little bit of a slasher movie. Obviously, oxygen is great and plentiful, but now you have the captain who's mad, like on this ship, just like waiting for people like to come, and like blows the hatch.
Yeah.
But is on the new Icarus.
Yeah.
And now you have your crew who docked the old Icarus is got to make a decision as to how they get aboard Icarus 2 again.
And I love that moment, because that's the moment I was talking about where they're Harvey is of the opinion, he's like, I'm the second in command.
Yeah.
I'm the most important person. And Mace is like, no, the most important person is the physicist. Why Kappa would ever come on board Icarus 1 doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
if
he would have left them.
I would have left them.
Also, Mace,
all the expendable people would have been on Icarus 1.
Right. Like, but also Mace volunteering Kappa even for the dinner plate mission, like, is also kind of reckless. Like, Mace should have been out there too.
It's true,
right? So
especially because he's the engineer. But but I think that's more of a fuck you to him.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
of like the fight earlier.
Yeah. Which it's like, okay, you know what? Even logically, Benedict Wong doing the math on that, like NASA's like rules are like double redundancy, right?
Yeah.
So everybody works in pairs, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's other like inaccuracies in this movie that when you're like, oh yeah, you know what, like that.
But at the same time,
right?
maybe it's like one of those things where they could only have so many people,
right? It's like what like how many, right? So,
yeah.
So there's other ways that it's like, I feel like Kappa shouldn't have went. I agree with that. I think he's maybe better on there or whatever. But like,
it's also one of those things that maybe you just never thought this would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time I'm sold by how much tension gets ratcheted.
Yeah.
So now these guys gotta shoot out this airlock, go into Icarus 1. And this is one thing, okay. Unfortunately, Harvey doesn't make it out of here.
No.
Right? There's one spacesuit that Kappa gets, and then Mace...
Which Mace is like, Kappa's got to get that suit because he's the only person who can arm the bomb.
Right.
So they put him in the suit, and then Mace is like, all right, we're going to wrap ourselves in fucking tinfoil, whatever the fuck this is, and we're going to get on that ship.
Which I feel like, okay, so this airlock blast out. By the way, Cliff Curtis doesn't make it. He stays aboard the Icarus 1.
Because he has to airlock,
right? And also gets his goodbye, like in the observation room of Icarus 1, where he gets the full like blast of like the sunlight or whatever.
Oh,
right?
because that's right. Because the shield, the shield of Icarus 2 is covering the observation.
Yeah.
So when they leave, it like full blast fucking
them, yeah. So there's
disintegrates them pretty much.
And so that's like, there's a lot of these weird things that are happening where like things are kind of coming to a close, even though things aren't like ending or like going the way you wanted them to. They're like very poetic, especially for him. But Harvey doesn't make it. And I remember watching it the first time. So Harvey, they all blast at the airlock, but Harvey like gets his leg clipped and then just goes spinning in outer space, freezes to death. But then once he leaves the shadow of like the dinner plate, like disintegrates because he's hit by like the sun energy. And I remember being like, man, I don't think I've ever seen a space movie show space in such harsh conditions Like this is a movie. It's not like The Martian or something where it's like humans conquer space or anything like that. This is like humans get obliterated by like the extreme temperature differences of outer space, and you watch Harvey go from an ice cube to just, and I'm like, man, I've never seen that before in a movie, right? And you're like, oh my god, for deaths in outer space go, like that is very crazy.
But even like, so Harvey gets clipped, and then so Kappa's in the suit. Mace also doesn't go in, so Kappa grabs him and throws him in, and then once they're like, Harvey's gone, it's like, all right, Harvey's out, like close the door. And then, but Mace pulls his hand out, and his like thumb has like frostbite and stuff. It's like, oh, like, but it's like as heroic as Kappa is, Mace is like,
bro, like, I was in outer space, no suit. Like, what's up? Yeah.
What up, bro? Like, okay, who wants to drink with me?
Right. Like, very much the hero. Like, okay,
to the end.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. Go. Now, okay, even to his own demise or whatever.
He kills himself pretty much to get the ship back up, to get Icarus back on line.
Which also is like what's cool about Pinbacker. He's invisible for like a little bit. You're getting like hints that he's around, like he's on the ship or whatever. But what's cool, and they establish again early in the movie, is like the ship is run on like motherboards that are in like cooling tank water, and like the cooling tanks get breached, and like the motherboards start coming out of the cooling tanks, and it gets like broken. Like somebody's sabotaging the ship, and that's up to Mace now to fix that, and he gets trapped like in the device to like bring him in.
So it's established early on. He's like working on it, and then he drops the wrench in, and then he reaches in and he pulls his hand out, and it's like, which I gotta throw it out there. Actually, I worked at a plant a couple years ago. And apparently at the plant, somebody did that with liquid nitrogen.
They grabbed something
they weren't thinking, allegedly, and they dropped like a wrench or something, and they reached in and grabbed it.
But it was liquid nitrogen.
It was liquid nitrogen, and it fucked it. Like the next time I saw the person, their hand was a boxing glove. It was like, whoa, what the fuck are you talking? Yeah. So it's like every time I see that, I think of that guy. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, but like at this point now, so like if the old captain from Icarus 1, who's like crazy, and he's also like leaving messages, like we get like little bits of him like giving
he's like monologuing,
monologuing, about, right
about what you were saying though, being on the edge of the universe, and letting, like, should I let humanity die? Like, it's just like, whoa, he wasn't the last man, because I think he thinks at this point that he's the last man in the universe.
Yeah, he's waiting for Earth to die.
Yeah,
like he's the last one. Yeah.
So, which is an interesting like concept. It's like, but you were talking earlier about how you can't really see him. I like it. A lot of people don't like it. I like the fact that it's almost like he's so radiated that like you can't even look at him without your fucking eyes going nuts.
Like looking at the sun, right? And you're like, oh shit, I can't look at that for very long. Like it's the same thing. He's like out of focus and blurry. He's absorbed so much, right? Like it's like, what is this? And like that's like scary. Like, okay, there's that joke Mitch Hedberg has. It's like, I think Bigfoot is blurry, and that's even scarier. It's like, it's kind of like that, like on this movie. It's like, this guy is like so scary. You can't even get a good pin on him. Like, you can't get a good look at him. Like, he's like, Rrr. And I think in a lot of ways it's probably to hide the makeup. Like, it's a naked dude just like with like burned, scabby, like sun patches like all over him and stuff like that. He's like, he's maybe he's not that impressive if you saw him without the like blurry like camera effects on him or whatever. But I think it adds a level of like,
I don't know,
crazy.
Man. He looks
and the music that's playing too. There, there's like a sound of the radiation emitting from him when you're looking at him, and he's always scary. He's always looking.
His introduction's really cool. When he goes to the observation room and he's just standing there and he's like just out of focus. Yeah. He's just a silhouette. It's like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah. But like his whole thing is like, we're not meant to play God. Like if God is designed to like he wants to destroy us, it's not up to us to change it or whatever. And like that's a scary concept that I don't think, again, people don't want. They don't want to be confronted with that. Like that's like obviously very evil, but like people like control, I think, right, ultimately. And this what this movie is a big part of like, well, we can restart the sun if we want. There's a reset button actually. So it's like this guy. So like I get how evil he comes off, but it's crazy to think that like a bomb would blow it up, and like the percentages are low. Like he's got like, even though he's a bad guy, like he's like he still thinks that this is like meant to happen, and your plan might not even work, bro. You came to my ship to try to get a second bomb just in case. So it's like, I don't know. A very interesting villain. It's unfortunate, like, yeah, it gets kind of sketchy by the end of it. And so he's systematically killing everyone. He gets the motherboards out. Mace sacrifices himself, and like he's pinned in the cooling tanks. So he's able to help the mission continue, but he's frozen. Michelle Yeoh doesn't make it.
Yeah, and she gets stabbed in the back.
Yeah. That's maybe where the final shot is. Like there's like, that's the third scalpel. Maybe is like in her back. But it ends up with, okay, there's enough systems on that Kappa has to manually activate the countdown sequence. They get to like where they're going to set the bomb off. He has to get onto the bomb part that will detach from the toothpick part.
Yeah.
To where Pinbacker is inside already with his girl.
Yeah, with Rose Byrne. Yeah.
Right. And it's down to this. And I think it's kind of hard, and I don't know if they establish it properly, but I'm watching that. I already understand that this bomb is like a giant cube, and it's so dense that it has like its own gravity. So when they're running on like the top of it, there's a point where they have like this encounter and they're fighting and they fall off the edge of it. It's so much force or whatever that they're able to just like kind of ride conveniently to the entrance point of where the bomb is. Like ride that gravity, and you're just looking at this villain who kind of has like a good plan, but then doesn't like, he kind of stops being a threat at some point too, and it's almost like it's a race to this bomb to set it off.
It's almost like he sees them go, and he's like, "All right, you guys got it."
Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna just give up or whatever. Like, there's no way I'm jumping down there or whatever. So that's also another thing too. It's like this pretty much essentially this sci-fi movie that turns into like a slasher. The slasher maybe isn't as effective as, let's say, a Michael or like a Thing, and that's maybe a letdown in some ways. But okay, at this point now, the bomb is it's rocketing towards the sun, blows up the toothpick. There's no way home. Kappa blows the bomb, but things are like starting to smear because it's like,
I like to think of it like being bathed in sunlight, like what Searle's always talking about.
Right.
The same with the captain. He does that moment where like he can run, but he's like, "Nah, I'm just gonna accept it."
Yeah.
He turns and he just kind of bathes it. It's the same thing. I feel like it's like what they feel like. I don't know, but go ahead. Sorry.
I don't. Well, no, I agree with you. It's like this like we're okay. Earlier in the movie, there's like, we didn't talk about it, but there's this room that like runs simulations of like Earth for them to make them feel like at home and stuff, and that's part of Searle's like psych rehabilitation and stuff like that. But it's also like an area where Kappa runs like the mission, like what's supposed to happen at this point now. And there's a point where the mission's like, okay, well, like based on the simulation we're running, this is less than 45% effective. Yeah. Right. And there's a point where I can't calculate any further because I don't know what's going to happen. So when this bomb is rocketing towards the sun and like eventually is going to be enveloped by one of these crashing sun tidal waves or whatever, space and time are like smearing. And it's like, I really like, even though it looks kind of cheap and like maybe like what's going on or whatever, it's like, bro, like this is what the unknown like looks like. We're pioneers, dude. So he sets off the bomb. I think there's actually this really beautiful moment where like he does get to see the surface of the sun, and like there's this pause moment where his bomb is going off, and like he's in the middle of his bomb going off behind him and the sun like in front of him, and like obviously this moment is like wouldn't exist. Yeah. Because you would be enveloped by the sun and destroyed, and the bomb would explode at the same time. Like, it's whatever. But, like, there's this sweet moment where...
It's like a cathartic moment.
Yeah, he got the closest. Yeah. Is kind of what I'm experiencing. Is, like, everybody tried to get close, but, like, he rode the bomb, just like What's-His-Face in Strangelove. Right. He rode it, like, or whatever. And it's, like, it's this beautiful moment. And I will say, like, the music... like in it, it's really well
John
done.
Murphy's score in this movie is amazing.
And like I feel like if this movie like was anything, like they've taken that music and put it in other things. Like after, I feel it's like in the Wolverine trailer even and stuff like that. They took Surface of the Sun, especially that track. My goodness, they took that and like they've run with that in other things since that, because hey man, it's really good. So
it's like amazing, yeah.
So yeah, we talked through most of the plot on that one, but the mission's successful. right?
Yeah, because the sun does actually get brighter.
Yeah, and like that's we go like the ends with like a scene on Earth where like
it's like winter.
Yeah, in Australia. Right, which is like
yeah.
because you see like the opera house or whatever and stuff like that. So it's like and like that's it. Like you're talking right. It's simple, bro. Like there's not a lot of human Earth connection. It's mostly these people in this tin can. But man, it's something so satisfying about like conquering the unknown, even though like it's maybe not believable to like science's standards or whatever.
But science, I mean, yeah, whatever. It's science fiction. That's the point of it, right? That's what makes it fun.
Yeah,
I know. We were talking when we were discussing doing this movie. I was talking about how I really like plots where there's a moment where the main character has to choose like, all right, if I continue further, I am going to die. There's no way around it. But it's like, and then they choose to do that, and it becomes this like, all I have to do now is complete this mission. And then I can die, and like that's the end of it. Yeah. That's it. It's like, and I really like moments like that in movies, and this one is one of my favorites. Where it's just like there's that moment where like the toothpick detaches, and he like jumps from the toothpick, and then he like looks back as the toothpick. I like that we're calling it the toothpick, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know what it's.
It's like a good description of it,
but it is.
But like it just kind of floats, and then like just kind of disintegrates.
Yeah, because the rocket on the bomb, the rockets ignite, and it's obviously moving in a way that it's gonna get clipped by the heat, and it does, and you see it explode and stuff like that. But you're right, it is. It's a point of no return.
Excuse me.
And it is. It's his own bomb, which I really love too. It's like if anybody was gonna be like, jump off, like into the like, it's a really cool moment.
Yeah,
I think. And one thing I'll say again, the design of the spacesuit really like unusual,
bizarre. It's so like, it's something you would see like in the 60s. Like, it's something you would picture, like, it's a fucking scuba suit. Like, remember those old scuba suits, like, the big head? It's what it reminds me of. It's like, why is this so large? And there's even this scene when he's walking and he falls. And it's, like, a moment. Because, like, the timer's going down, and it takes him, like, 5 minutes to get up, because it's like he's a turtle after that. It's like, oh my god, is he gonna get up?
And they said there's scenes like the HUD, like the heads up display, where the camera's like inside, like the
Iron Man shot, if you will.
Yeah, right. On a profile too, which I really enjoy. But they wore the helmet with the camera in it, so he's like, he's spinning and stuff like that. He's actually having a hard time getting up, and I think that's really fun. I think that's like a good method, like way to like be like, oh dude, like, this is intense, and like that's like you can't act spit that good. Like the spit just like you have no control over that stuff. So it's like, man,
no, it's true.
That's good.
But that's the thing. Like most sci-fi movies, like we'll talk like the Alien movies or whatever. Like maybe not the older ones, but like the newer, like their space suits are like skin tight, and there's like a dome where you click a button, and it's like, and it just like and it just disappears into the suit. This space suit is not that. It's like picture the heaviest costume you could probably like. That's what it is. It's like, imagine wearing 5 suits of armor at the same time. Like,
but then like, I don't know, looking at NASA's like outfits and stuff like that too, I felt like it's
probably very realistic, actually.
Yeah, like you went for, our own version of that, and yes, we're flying towards the sun, so it's like it's gold too, it's all gold, the suit, and it's like, that's reminiscent of the dinner plate that is also all gold. Whatever these reflective panels are like able to repel sunlight, radiation, and stuff. That's really important. But like, it still reminds me of like there's clearly like a heavy NASA influence in all of this, and like they brought that into the spacesuit somewhat. Like this also, it's got like a slit visor, which is like reminiscent of like if you were like out in Antarctica and you're trying to cut down on reflective like light or whatever, you would have that sort of thing. So it's like,
you know what? Actually, I just thought of it. The suit actually reminds me a little bit of the suits from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, it is okay. So Danny Boyle said, much like this movie is, I feel like, a very much like inspired by like Alien, but like because you have like a death, like in like everybody's getting picked off or whatever, but it's more human, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, but it is also inspired by 2001 a little bit too, and yeah, you're right. The spacesuits, even the orbs and stuff like that. There's again in '68, right? There is like an era of it,
definitely,
but also modern at the same time too, and with the NASA like overtone in it. So.
Yeah. Speaking of Alien, there's one scene where Harvey, when he hears the distress signal the first time,
puts his head in the green beam.
In like the beams, it reminds me so much of Alien.
That's so
I don't even know
cool.
what it is about it, why it reminds me so much of Alien. It just does.
In the first one where all the eggs are, they actually have a laser line
Maybe that's
out, and
it.
you can
Maybe
see it
that's
on their
it.
bodies or whatever. It's like the same effect.
Yeah.
But like again, right? It's like, how do we homage what we love so much but make it work for our movie? And like the fact that like they even tease Harvey, they're like listening to your space music. He puts his like ears in the beam and you're like, oh wow, that's cool. Like I understand the technology. Like it looks foreign or whatever and maybe a little futuristic.
Yeah, they do a very good job of just like, oh, this is how it works. Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, tech really dig. The music in it, again, John Murphy, I love it, but even Underworld's ending is kind of like abrupt and jarring, but I love that choice for music. And I think, abrupt and jarring is what this movie is sometimes, and like unsettling, maybe even. And like that's like, I really dig that out of space movies, because I feel like also another thing is like space is very much projected as like a place where we want to be going, and like Sunshine doesn't do it any favors. Like space is actually like, after that movie I'm like, man, like maybe we're not meant to be in outer space. Like even we're talking going to the moon and stuff like that. Like here's the thing, I'd love to go in outer space to see what it's like or whatever, make sure the earth isn't flat, like it is actually a round ball like everybody's been saying or whatever. But like after that, I'm a homebody, bro. Like, I don't need to go to the next planet. I'm not going to Mars. I'm not going that close to the sun. So it's fun to think about what that would be like and what it would be, the strain it would be like on those people, like what that toll would be on them. Like that's...
I'm going to be honest, man. I have this like big fear of like water, like deep water, like the oceans and shit.
Yeah.
There's something about like the idea that there are creatures the size of skyscrapers down there. That's just what I know of.
Right.
It goes so far down that we don't even know what the fuck's down there. It's impossible. And that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Like, take that and times it by 10. That's what space is to me.
Right.
So I will never go into space. You go ahead. You do you. I'm not leaving Earth. There's no fucking way that's happening. Just like, the idea is like, oh, it's just this vast thing where nobody knows, and like, if
ever expanding
it's
still
just
too
like,
or whatever, so it's always
no, I'm
changing.
good. I'm good, guys.
But yeah, I don't know, and that's like, okay, in a good way, it's humbling in a little bit, I would say, and this is what this movie does for me, is it makes me appreciate being at home, and like it makes me appreciate that the sun isn't dying, and that will hopefully one day envelop the earth and not like go cold on it or whatever. Not that that's any better or whatever, but like that's gonna be hopefully a long time from now, right? Like, so I don't know, but that's I don't know. I'm so thankful that there's movies like this one, because I think raw space is gonna be like a big thing for like a long while. And I love The Martian. I thought that one was a good one. I'm comparing it as like the opposite of The Martian or whatever, but like space is still exciting. It's just, this was a great take on like the horrors of outer space. So,
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much. Well, like, is there
I don't have
anything
much-
else?
no,
Yeah,
that's pretty much all I was gonna say, too.
I will say, like, it's funny for me. So at the time, okay, I'm gonna say this. When I watched this movie, you kind of, first time I saw it, I wasn't really paying attention so much to who wrote it, but I found myself really loving anything Alex Garland wrote, and being like, I like that. Oh my goodness, it's this guy again too, right? So there's something to be said about him. And I know recently he's just come out with Civil War.
Such a good movie,
bro. And like, I love, like, okay, so like being a camera operator, being a photographer or whatever, I love that Civil War was like this crazy like photo mode for like taking the government or whatever. And this guy's got great concepts, and he's got great just a great way his brain works, and he's just making good movies. So it's like, I'm whatever, like if he's gonna take a break right now, that's fine, but I hope he does come back, like take a break, get some really good inspiration in you, and then I'm excited for maybe another bout of like movies from him, whether he's writing or just...
He's writing 28 years later, so that's exciting.
Good, right? So it's like, and like if he says he's done directing and he's going to go to writing, I'm excited for the next round of movies from this guy, because I think all he does, even if a lot of it isn't box office like successful, I feel like he's got a track record of things not doing as great as they could. Even like Dredd, like good. Right? It's a great movie, but it's like a lot of his stuff is like after the fact. It's like great. It's like it's not up front. Like, it doesn't get the draw.
I feel like a lot of his movies are very like philosophical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even his most commercial movies there's even the one I could think of is 28 Days Later. Would probably be his most commercial. It's just a zombie movie, but there's one scene where the one guy is like, it's some guy, one of the army men. It's like in the third act. One of the army men's like, "Oh, I can't wait till we go back to normal." And then the one guy's like, "Well, I mean, if you think about it, human beings have only been on this planet for like 1,000 years. The planet's like 1 billion years old. So if we all died, that would be the planet going back to normal." And it's like this weird philosophical, like, holy fuck, when you put it that way.
In a zombie movie, too. Where it's like, and, like, that's one thing that's cool about zombies is they're kind of one of the only monsters that, like, make us realize our own, like fate. Like, we're all going to die eventually, right? Or whatever.
It's one of those things where, like,
apocalypse.
It kind of shines a mirror on the fact that we are monsters. We could be the monsters. Like, whereas vampires and werewolves, they seem super, like, they're not far fetched, but like
a little bit more fantastical,
supernatural.
Right?
Exactly. Fantastical is a great example. Whereas like zombies, I'm like, oh, it's like we're the villains. Oh boy.
But yeah, so that's good. But yeah, I will say I highly recommend Sunshine, guys, and check out more of Alex Garland's work. Danny Boyle's work is also really amazing. I have to check out. There's some of his earlier stuff. Transpotting as far as back as I go, but
Transpotting.
the Shallow Grave I hear good things about.
Shallow Grave's fantastic. So I honestly unfortunately don't know the girl actress's name. But
Ewan McGregor's in
Ewan
it.
McGregor's
That's right.
It's Ewan McGregor, Christopher Eccleston.
Oh, okay.
And a female, and I don't know who she is, but it's about these three people who they are looking for a roommate. So they own a flat in England. I'm thinking it's either England or Scotland, but they're looking for a roommate. So this one guy shows up and he's a little mysterious. And they're like, yeah, you can fucking stay with us. And they end up coming home one day, and the dude's dead of a drug overdose.
Oh, wow.
And they find under his bed is a suitcase full of, I believe it's money. It could be drugs.
Oh, that's
but
fun.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, it's like a moral. Like,
so they're like, oh, do we take it? So of course they fucking take it.
Yeah. If you're hard up too, right?
Right. And then they just dispose of the body. They don't even call the police. And then what it is the people whose product or money it is, they show up and they're like, what happened to that guy? The last time, anybody saw him was here. And they're like, we don't know. But it gets really interesting because, like, I'm kind of spoiling shit a little bit, but
that's okay.
Without spoiling too much.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah. Christopher Eccleston's character. So because they have to dispose of the body, they like flip a coin on who's going to do it. And Christopher Eccleston's character is the one who gets stuck with that. Oh. But like after doing it, it fucks him up, and like so the back half of the movie is like him slowly like
descending.
Yeah, and it's like so it gets kind of interesting. Yeah, okay. But it's a good movie. So that's good. And the Trainspotting's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, even like I'm trying to think of anything he's done recently. Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
I think yesterday might be his last thing.
Yesterday was probably the most recent. You know what? Trance came out. Do you remember Trance at all? After that, he was like into Rosario Dawson. Yeah. You know what?
I kind of dug it. I thought it was all right.
I didn't mind it.
Who wrote that one?
I forget who wrote that.
I thought.
I have to check it.
Did Alex Garland write that too? No.
I don't think so.
Somebody big wrote that though. I know that because I remember it was a big deal that movie was coming out.
Yeah, I like that James McAvoy was in it. Here's the thing: I saw it, but it's been so long. I'd have to revisit it, be like,
oh fuck. Here we go. Oh, maybe not. Oh, John Hodge. That's who wrote it.
Okay, who's that?
The guy who wrote Trainspotting. That's why it was a big deal for me.
Okay.
Anyway, so
was it as good as Trainspotting? No, I kind of don't remember it, dude. Like I remember there's like art thievery happening, but you're not sure what actually happened. Like somebody's been hypnotized, but you don't know who or something.
What it's about, is James McAvoy plays an art auctioneer, and there's like a robbery at the art exhibit.
Okay.
And so Vincent Cassell plays the guy who's like stealing the art. And he gets away with the thing, that he opens it, and it turns out that the piece of art has been cut out. And it was James McAvoy who got away with it.
Oh, I see.
But James McAvoy, after he got away with it, Vincent Cassell, without realizing it, met up with him and then beat him up, and made it so he lost his memory, so he doesn't remember where he put it. So he wakes up, he doesn't have the art piece anymore. He did something with it, and nobody knows where it is. So they call a hypnotist to find out.
Get it? Yeah. Okay. I remember there was hypnotism in it or something like that. It's okay.
And here's the thing: the cast is great. It's a cool idea for a movie, and it goes to some crazy places. Actually, I just remember thinking the movie was just okay. It was like one of those.
Yeah.
But anyway, Alex Garland, though, on the opposite of that, I think every movie he's made is amazing. You said he kind of directed Dredd.
Yeah. So I was reading about this and watching some material about this. So I think it's Pete Travis who's like officially titled like as like who directed Dredd, but I guess during pre-production or like they were about to shoot it, they shoot for like 2 weeks with him, and then he's kind of like off the project, and Garland takes over like pretty much directing the whole thing, but is only credited as writing it. And at the time when they were doing interviews, there's an interview with Carl Urban who like he's like, oh yeah, the director Pete, I like him, whatever, and like he doesn't have too much to say about him. And then like later in like more recent interviews, it's come out that it's like, yeah, Alex Garland pretty much directed that whole thing. Like, and it's like we were working really closely together with him. He steered the ship, even though he's got like a writing credit on it or whatever. And you're like, oh wow, like no wonder I like Dredd so much.
It's
like
so
this,
good.
yeah. And you're like, and like that was one where I'm like, yo, he wrote that, like cool, but it's like no, he kind of like. He helped guide that movie to what it became, and you're like, oh man, like, and again, another like not a box office whatever, but like that movie is so impressive to me. Like, I don't care if they make a sequel, I'll watch that one over and over.
It's a great movie,
That's that.
And then he goes on to actually like he gets credit for directing. Oh fuck, what's that movie called? What's his first one? Ex Machina.
Oh, Ex Machina.
He does Ex Machina,
really
which is amazing. It's a fantastic movie. And then he goes on to do Annihilation, which I know you're not a huge fan of. I really like Annihilation.
I think like again too, it's being adapted, right? So like you got to do what you got to do, but like
it's the book's very different. I read the book. It's very, very, very different. But
I think for me, what I didn't care for the first time was maybe a little bit of like the between Oscar Isaac and Natalie Portman's drama. Like I kind of wanted to just get into the shimmer already. I think where the meat of the story is there, and like we get there, and then once it goes down, like dude, watching it recently, rewatching it, I really loved the alien encounter at the end. I think everything about that is really spectacular. Like the mimicking and the weird shapes that the asteroid created within the lighthouse or whatever. I think all of that stuff's really cool.
It's very cool.
But there's other things I have hesitations about. I think the team could have been like bigger, or like maybe you have more like, I don't want to say diversity or whatever. It's just okay. Not that I don't have a problem with like a team of all women or whatever, but I feel like why not send in like a larger like why does it have to be 5 women all kind of with like death wishes? Like I guess maybe not everybody wants to go in, but like.
But they all definitely have that.
Yeah, or whatever. And, like, if that's in the book, I understand including that. But, like, I don't know. There was something weird and off about it.
I guess at that point, though, they had sent so many teams of men. They're like, all right.
Right, well, let's try something different.
But at the same time, too, the girls, I think they went in on their own volition. Like, they
just like volunteers, right? So
they just,
like for science.
They just wanted to go in.
Right. But then, like, okay, so, like, is Chivalry dead? Can we escort these women? Like, or is that, like, am I being too sexist to be like, right. Oh, well, like, I don't know. Like, somebody, or, like, so you got, like, a robot, like, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. It's like, I think at the time I was hung up on all that nonsense, but like now watching it, I'm like, well, whoever goes in there is like getting pretty much effed up. So it's like, send whoever, I guess, right? See what happens, right? And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So again, second rewatch, I like it more. It's not my favorite from him, but like it's still worth the watch. I think it's
for
worth
sure.
It,
I like it a lot. It's funny because you said you didn't really like the whole thing with Oscar Isaac. I think that stuff is fascinating. First of all. She kind of explains a lot of what the movie's about in the opening bit with like, because she's a biology professor. But then he shows up and he sits down and it becomes like something out of Silent Hill. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie or played the video games, but like...
He's acting weird.
It's just so strange. Yeah. Like she's like, how did you get here? He's like, I don't know. And he's like, there was a door and I just walked through it and then I was here. And it's just like, everything he says is like, creepy.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck is... And it's like one of those things where it's like, she's like, he looks like my husband, but he's fucking
he's not
acting on. He's very strange. And like just all of his answers are so like vague and like...
alien, bro.
Yeah,
It's
yes.
like he's been duplicated, dude. Like this, yeah.
And it's just interesting. I don't know. I think it's cool. But yeah, so then he goes. Apparently, Alex Garland has said that he did. It is an adaptation of a book, but he read the book once, and then just put it away, and he wrote the script based on what he remembered from the script from the book. So it's like he didn't like adapt it necessarily. He liked the book, and he just remembered some stuff, and he just wrote his own thing. Okay. But it's very much. I think it's very much. We're talking about this a little bit before we filmed the Dune podcast. It reminds me a lot of the movie Stalker. I don't know if we talked about it on mic or not, but Annihilation is very much Stalker. And I think so. Annihilation's kind of on my list of movies to watch for this, so maybe I won't get too much into it. But I like it.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, we'll put a pin in it and we'll come back to it. Yeah. But that being said, I think as far as science fiction goes, whatever Alex Garland's making, I'm into. I haven't seen Men yet either. I'm gonna check that one out. I know that one's maybe not as well loved or like it's.
No,
not,
here's the thing. Yeah. It's a movie that I don't actually know anybody who's seen. I've never heard anybody talk about it.
Bro, I want to watch it so bad. I think it's on one of the streaming services I have.
Is it?
Like it's there, or if not, I'll find it because I like the idea of like the one guy looking the same or whatever. I think that's kind of scary too, or whatever. So the trailer freaked me out, so I was like, oh, gotta see it.
For people who don't know, I mean, maybe you want to go in blind. I apologize if that's the case, but what it is a girl. I'm trying to think if that's a spoiler, but not really. Anyway, so her boyfriend dies. Her boyfriend dies, and so she wants to go on vacation to like get away from that. So she goes to this small town, and everybody in the town is played by the same actor.
Right.
It's just this guy. It's the guy from 007 from the new James Bond movies.
Oh yeah.
Who plays M's right hand.
Right. Yeah. We should know that guy's name.
I think it's Rory something. Okay. I could be wrong on that.
I'll look it up.
Anyway,
look it up, you guys. You listen.
Yeah,
you got Google too. It's good.
But yeah, so but the thing that's weird about it is she never like makes a like. It's not like she's weirded out by it. Like,
it's obvious though. It's him.
100%.
Yeah,
Every single character is played by him.
Yeah.
They all have like different wigs. Like they all look different, but like she's not weirded out by it. You know what I mean? Even the person who like owns the house that's showing her around is the same actor. Like there's a little kid in the movie that's like a 10-year-old played by the same actor.
Yeah, well, that's scary.
But like she never says out loud, it's like everybody looks like. It's not like that. It's like it's more for the audience. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
But then it gets to the point where like it just gets fucking weird. The movie is interesting. I don't know. Like and it has a very bizarre ending. And here's the thing, you're probably running through your head like all the possible endings that it could be. You're not gonna guess it. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
I could give you 1,000 chances, and you're never gonna say it because it's so fucking weird. Yeah. But
I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna get to it soon. We'll see. This year it's there's movies on the watch list, but I want to catch up. There's blind spots in my watch history between Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. I want to fill it in. So that's one I'll put higher up there. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay.
I think that's all I got.
Okay, yeah. Watch Sunshine, everyone. I highly recommend.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Till next time.
Peace out. Oh wait.
Bye. Peace out.